Thank you very much, Mr. Bertozzi. Thank you very much, Energy Pact, for convening this in the grounds of UNCTAD and cooperating with us. This is a very timely event, and I would like to not only thank you, but saying how pleased we are to be sharing this panel with distinguished guests today. This is indeed a very timely event for a series of reasons. First, the whole concept of the green economy came into being in the aftermath of maybe the most serious and most complex financial crisis we have experienced so far, and it's definitely yet not over. The financial crisis not only brought to us a lot of headaches, a lot of tough questions, a lot of financial losses to those that have assets, but a lot of social insecurity. It also brought some new openings, issues at the policy level, such as talking about industrial policies became no longer a sin. So we are seeing developing countries trying to overcome the crisis through what was a bit outdated Keynesian international interventions, directly trying to support aggregate demand and the poorest groups of societies, or those more vulnerable to financial crises. So this was a very important event that is in the context of this discussion of the green economy. Also, in this same context, there is the new element, the new emerging economies, which is definitely changing the landscape and the geography of the world today. There are new challenges ahead, how to incorporate these huge new partners in the room, both at the WTO, at the IMF, in other quarters, and we're very pleased to, of course, to share this panel today with some representatives from China, from Brazil, and others. But the importance is that the South is having a new voice. We heard that Africa, since Copenhagen understood and is deploying new tactics. They are indeed speaking with one voice, and this has changed climate negotiations considerably. Third, we have all observed the Arab Spring, which is still evolving. This has reminded us that there's a lot of power in social connectiveness. We were recalled as well to listen more attentively to society, and that was a clear message, or is a clear message, that we're hearing every single day. Thirdly, the pressing environmental challenges, and I'm very pleased to see Stephen Stone here with us, are still unabated. We have seen that the environmental challenges, which are at the core of our capacity to overcome crisis and promote growth and social well-being, is being depleted, and I must admit, even from a UN perspective, that we have not succeeded to face these challenges, these very pressing environmental challenges, namely climate change, at the multilateral level yet. I tend to be a very hopeful person, and while the Durban conference is not over, we had a couple of weeks ago a very important meeting here in UNCTAD where we had some of the climate negotiators, and there is some hope, but I cannot disclose the outcome because it's still not over. But there is noises that leads us to some more hopeful approaches to Durban. Let's stay tuned for the next 10 days. Then there is the Rio Plus 20 occasion. This is going to be an extremely important occasion to distill these experiences that I just very briefly described. I submit that this is going to be a very important moment for self-criticism, as the world today is definitely not stable economically, financially, socially, and environmentally. So, if anything, Rio will not be. Well, first, it is a wonderful city, and it's prone to make people dream and think in a more different, creative way. But it is a moment that will ask us to think in a different way, because the way it is, the way the world is today, clearly, at the minimum, we are called to be more responsible towards ourselves, but also towards future generations. So Rio +20 will be a time to contract, to reflect, and to converge around global sustainability. I think we have to be humble and go to Rio, assuming that clearly the way things are going, we're not heading for a very bright future. We've done a lot of good things. We have achieved a lot of important goals. There is less poor people in the world today than there were some 50 years ago. It is true, but the challenges are more complex. So I would like to invite you just to go through 6 very brief points that came out of our expert meeting on the trade and sustainable development implications of the green economy we held here with many of you present in UNCTAD, and try to leave these 5-6 points with you. First point is that the whole concept of the green economy is not going to find a consensus today or in Rio or maybe ever. The important is that the green economy is not a final destination, but a process. It is a process towards sustainable development, towards this global sustainability, which could be a way out of the instabilities that we see in the world today. And as such, as a process, it cannot be achieved through a one-size-fits-all approach. We heard Africa this morning, distinguished Minister of Algeria, and clearly we cannot apply what we have experienced in Brazil or in the US or in China across the globe. So we need to be more sensitive, more astute in understanding the national circumstances. Consequently, there will be not a single green economy, but as many paths to sustainability that countries will define themselves in accordance to their national circumstances. The green economy is already occurring in some sectors, as our Secretary General of UNCTAD said today, and in some parts of the world. However, benefits are still limited and certainly fragmented. It is important to remind what he said today, that in terms of renewable technologies, renewable energy technologies, it's no longer a case of only the South buying these technologies and the North producing and selling them, but the South is already producing and exporting some of these technologies. Out of the 6 main renewable energy technologies, we have participation of developing countries ranging from 24 to 53% of exports today. Of course, this is not taking place in all developing countries, and this is a problem, of course. But this is changing again the landscape. It's important to understand that the benefits are, as I said, limited and fragmented, and that's why international organizations like us, UNCTAD, UNEP, and others are addressing the concerns, trying to overcome perceived risks that developing countries share with us, and trying to unlock opportunities arising from economic sectors linked with the green economy. Developing countries will require targeted and enhanced assistance to transition in this process to a green economy to meet their development aspirations, which are their right, as we all know. Another point that we distilled from our meeting was that the transition or process to a green economy is neither automatic, so it will not happen by, spontaneous combustion. We need to steer it, and nor it will be guided by market forces alone. We know where the market forces lead us to, and what I mentioned before is a clear daunting evidence of that. So there is a need for government interventions, what we call here in UNCTAD a proactive development state, not absolutist, not centrally planned economic policy making, but a state which takes charge of its unique importance in steering the economy towards more sustainable paths. And a second point that this state will have to look more closely at is the whole issue of policy coherence. Here in Geneva, we see all too often that development and developed and developing countries are represented in different fora with different voices. When we are discussing the UN sustainability, countries have a position. When they go to the WTO, they have a very different position. What Italy, the Italian representative mentioned today, more of a mercantilistic, short-term approach to issues. This can and should be changed because this is at the core of the problem we face at the multilateral level today. In a transition to a green economy, the multilateral community should support developing countries and the most vulnerable groups in society. Their sustainable and human development will translate into benefits for the whole global community and should be seen as a global common good deserving direct support. In that sense, all stand to gain by moving to a more sustainable future. The challenge is, of course, is to move away from the short-term, quick-fix solutions, the lack of policy coherence, this disregard to the most vulnerable parts of the global economy and within countries, groups of society. That's the challenge, how to move away of this mind frame. But if we help developing countries in the transition, we all stand to gain. So the question is why this is not happening. On the issue of trade, an open and rules-based multilateral trading system plays a key role by disseminating good business practices, unlocking export opportunities for sustainably produced goods and services, and increasing the availability of green goods and technologies, particularly for developing countries. In this connection, the completion of the Doha round of trade negotiations could provide developing countries with increased opportunities to engage in a transition to a green economy. However, liberalizing environmental goods and services is a tiny little bit of what is required. Let us not be shy, let us not limit ourselves to one single paragraph in the Doha Development Agenda and think that this will be the most important contribution that trade could play in the transition to the green economy. That will be a myopic vision of what trade can do. We submitted some ideas in the expert meeting, which I don't have the time to go through now, but it is important that we see the trade green economy nexus in a more enlightened way, a more pragmatic way, but also taking to due account the concerns of most developing countries that the green economy can turn into a new era of green protectionism. This is not unavoidable. It is definitely unavoidable. And as our Secretary General said this morning, we have to go back to Agenda 21 and reinforce and update the mandate we had already in Agenda 21 some 20 years past. So these are some of the ideas I would like to share with you, and I stand ready to engage into a debate afterwards. Thank you, sir.